Hey everyone, it is Thursday afternoon and we are wrapping up our expert series of the week, and we do that with Matt Seamus. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Michael. As good as I can be doing. How are you?
I'm doing very well. So I know we have both been doing transactions here in the last couple of weeks, so I thought we should talk about that. Maybe we start with closings, and then maybe talk about some deals we have in escrow. I think that'd be fun. So I think you officially closed on a deal last week. Is that right?
Yes, we closed on a property on Friday. Um, this is in Boise, and it's a deal that we had in contract since February. So, really pre-COVID in the US at least.
Yeah.
And long process. We kind of went through the roller coaster of, do we want to close on this? What more do we need to learn in order for us to close?
Right.
Then kind of going through the process of getting the additional information we needed. We ended up getting a price reduction. We ended up getting a rent guarantee. So we negotiated just better terms for ourselves as buyers after COVID hit. But the deal was actually really solid, and we certainly weren't expecting anything like COVID, but everything we've been buying over the last couple of years has been through the lens of, we're going to hit some kind of downturn at some point, and we only want to be purchasing assets that we feel confident in how they're going to perform during a recessionary environment. So we kind of have only really been looking at things, only opening the top of our funnel to things that we felt like were going to perform well during a recession. So actually, as I kind of speak that to you out loud, it makes me feel, it makes the fact that we closed the transaction that we had in contract pre-COVID, it makes it feel a little bit more, maybe palatable, just because of all the uncertainty around COVID. But
yeah, I'm curious when you kind of look at it now, given you got a price reduction and you got at least, how long were the rent guarantees? The rest of the year, or
we got 6 months of rent guarantee.
So basically the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what did those changes do to your model? It had to improve at least year one results, I would think.
Yeah, they improve. I mean, my simple brain thinks of this as a simple, kind of very simple equation. If you get a price reduction, so the only thing that changed our model is the price reduction. And that means we're going to have a lower debt balance.
Yep.
And it also means we're going to need to put less money down on the property.
Yep.
So really, less money down is a big factor, because one of the important things that we look at is cash on cash return.
For sure.
And in that equation, the denominator of the equation is the equity that you have in the property. So if you can reduce that number, but maintain the same cash flow, which is kind of what happened in this case, we just get a slightly better outcome cash on cash return wise.
Yeah. Your numerator stayed the same, or actually it would change slightly because the debt service is different. It would change slightly. But yeah, the numerator's a little bit better. The denominator's probably a lot better. And, bingo bango, the yield's higher, right? The cash on cash return's higher.
Yeah, that's right. And candidly, we would have done the deal without a price reduction.
Yeah, but you weren't telling him that or her that.
No. And I should caveat that. When we went into the negotiation for the price reduction, we went into it. This is interesting. I actually would like to get your opinion here and hear how I think your style is going to differ from mine in this. And it would be interesting to just kind of rap about this for a moment. We went into the price reduction. Well, let me back up. When COVID hit, we were kind of, I'll call it midway through our due diligence period.
Right.
And so towards the kind of maybe 2/3 of the way through our due diligence period, it was clear that this thing is not going to go away soon.
Right.
There's a lot of uncertainty ahead, and we were not comfortable closing the transaction at that moment.
Right.
We were not comfortable.
Your money wasn't hard yet, right?
Money was not hard yet.
Okay. All right. I got you.
So what we decided to do, so we had a couple options. What we could have done was wait till the very last moment and attempt to maybe develop a position of greater leverage, because we're at the last moment. We've sucked out a couple more weeks of due diligence, and maybe the seller is in potentially a tighter position needing to sell. What we decided to do was quickly, earlier than we needed to, go to them and say, listen, we don't know what's going on here. We need some more time. Are you willing to grant an extension? If so, that's all we're asking for. Give us we asked for an extra 60 days.
Oh, okay.
Because 30 days wasn't going to be enough, it didn't feel like, for things to play out and for us to have any real new information to make a purchase decision on. So we asked for 60 days. We ended up getting 45 days.
Okay.
Now we bought ourselves 45 days. And then the decision was, okay, what more do we need to learn about this asset and about the tenants, about the market, about COVID, in order for us to feel comfortable, or in order for us to kill the transaction? Because we were happy to kill the transaction should the appropriate data surface and tell us this needs to be killed. Then what we ended up doing was we probably halfway through that 45-day period, we decided we're not comfortable closing as is. We really wanted the rent guarantee, actually, more than the price reduction, because the rent guarantee is essentially, if the tenant doesn't pay, the seller holds back money in escrow, and you, as the buyer, you get funds from escrow to cover any shortfall of rent. So that felt like a really strong, essentially insurance policy for us.
For sure.
What we decided to do, though, was instead of giving them a take it or leave it hardball offer, or instead of what's pretty common in real estate, which is like, well, I want $50,000 off, so I'm going to ask for 100, and they're going to meet me back in the middle at, they're going to say 25, and then maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle. We decided to just say, listen, guys, we still want to close the transaction. We love the deal. But the world is so uncertain right now. We need something. We need some combination of price reduction and some combination of price reduction and a rent guarantee, and make us an offer. What are you comfortable? What are you willing to do? And so we actually entered the negotiation that way, which I'm just curious to get your thoughts on. Sorry for the extensive.
No, I think all that's great. And we've talked about this before. So the rent guarantee is absolutely something I would have mandated, right? That would have been a non-negotiable to me. Because again, you're buying this, as I understand the reason, because it did have a tenant in place for 3 or 4 more years, right? So that's
10 more.
10 more, right? So that's I might even gone for 18 months of rent guarantee, but I would have done 6 months is fine, but I may have gone a little bit longer there. I probably, when you went in for the 60 days and got 45, I probably would have done an A or B, which is, hey, I still like the deal. We obviously both know this thing's going on. I either need more time just to see how crazy this gets, or I need, 10% off or $100,000 or whatever it is, right? I would have then I would have told me what was more important to them. I might have done something like that, and it would have been an aggressive price reduction. It wouldn't have been a marginal price reduction. Because I don't know, I like to give people options usually. And you never know their motivation, because sellers, they generally don't tell you the truth, right? Why they want to sell. So I might have done that, but I would have definitely gotten the rent guarantee. That would have been a part of my negotiations, and a line not to cross, for sure. Yeah. But I think it's creative. I mean, frankly, you got 45 days to, where your money's not hard. I mean, I'm wondering what the seller was thinking, because they give you 45 extra days. I guess they were hoping that it just turned around and it was a non-event, because the longer it went on, they had to know a price reduction was coming.
So this is another part of the dynamic, which I think is important, and the reverse of the dynamic that you typically have, I think, in your acquisitions. We were buying from a large institutional real estate player.
That's right.
And this property was one of a large portfolio transaction. It's one of like 80 properties that they purchased.
Right.
And so they don't have any debt on this property.
Must be nice.
what they were going to do. And I agree with you that you certainly can't trust what sellers say word for word, but what they articulated and what I actually believe is they said, yeah, I mean, if we're not going to close the transaction, we're not going to bring it back out to market. We're just going to refinance it and we'll pull some cash out and because the seller, another interesting little wrinkle, the seller is actually a tenant in the property. So they have a particular interest in the property. They're going to be there for a while. They, weren't as motivated as many sellers are because they didn't have debt on it. They just didn't need to sell in the way that others may. So it was a unique situation, but we're thrilled with the outcome. We're happy about, we're just happy about the asset.
Anytime you get to the finish line and you're happy and they're happy, it's a great deal. It's a great feeling. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've only completed one deal in this event. So, my story comes from the seller reaching out to me cold. We had never spoken. We had never spoken. I'm just known in Fresno as a buyer to be trusted. This particular seller got into escrow with what's called a wholesaler for 3 houses. It's a big city lot, like half an acre with 3 individual houses, a main house, and then 2 little 500, 600 square foot, 1 bedroom, 1 baths with driveways and the whole bit, right? So it's a big lot. They had it they had a signed contract. He sent me a copy of it at $240,000. So, $80K a house, which is, it's not really how it breaks down because there's 1 massive house and then 2 little ones, but still $80K a house. So he called me up. That was signed on, when was that signed? So when did I close? I closed early or late May. So he probably was signed in early March. And Fresno didn't go on lockdown until like the 15th of March. So the wholesaler was unable to perform because, again, didn't have his own money, right? He gets a contract and then he goes markets it and he tries to find another buyer, right? So this seller is cranky. So he reaches out to me and says basically, hey, Michael, you don't know me. And he does this in email because he doesn't speak great English, right? He's of Asian descent. He reaches out to me and goes, in broken English, hey, Michael, you're a buyer. You say you're always looking to buy. I have 3 houses to sell. Here's the addresses. Here's the old contract. What would you pay? That's what? First off, yeah. I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. I'm like, oh, okay, well, and this is all in email. I learned later because he doesn't speak English very well. So I replied back with, thanks for reaching out. Looks like an interesting property. Sorry, so-and-so, the wholesaler did you wrong. But there's no way in hell I could pay near 240. Probably not a deal for me. Sorry. Right. But, but I closed with, if you want to take a lower cash offer, maybe we can talk. Because, at this point, I don't know who the guy is, so I'm not going to name a number, right? So he comes back with saying, I need to sell it. I own it free and clear. I need to raise some money. I need it to close by June 1st. I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I have more data.
Yeah.
And
you got a highly motivated seller.
Yeah. And I got a date to be done. So I go back a couple of times because I always believe the first person to name a number loses, right? He clearly believes the same thing. So he's not budging. So I finally begrudge it and say, what's a crazy low number that's not insane, but if it happens, I'll be wildly happy. So I think $50K a door. So I send him a $150K cash offer. And he comes back with what you would expect, right? He had it in contract at 240 and he now sees my 150. He comes back with, oh my God, you're so insulting, blah, 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 blah. I would not take a penny less than 175. I'm like, oh, okay. Now we're at least talking, right? So I come back with, I say, would you do 165? I want to see if there's any more room there. There's nope, 175 is the bottom line. I send my guys out to look at it. It's a decent deal. Doesn't need a lot of work. I think after repair value is actually 320, probably needing 60 to 75 grand because I couldn't get in the 2 little houses because they're tenant occupied. But yeah, so I ended up doing the deal at 175 cash, closed in 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And
so tell me, okay. So, and you closed it in June?
I closed it late May. So he got his money before June 1st.
Well, that speaks to a couple things to me. One, your reputation in the market.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? That's huge. That's foundational. You wouldn't have gotten this deal if you hadn't already done a bunch of other deals and had a strong reputation.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, very lucky.
Two, and that doesn't come overnight.
No, it doesn't. No.
Two, you had dry powder,
Yes.
right? Whether you had it sitting there in a suitcase next to you, or you had a line of credit, or you had investors ready to go, you had the cash to take down a great opportunity when it arose.
Yep.
And it arose.
Exactly.
And then I guess the third thing that comes to mind is you executed on an extremely tight time frame.
Yes.
Which was necessary for the seller, and afforded you the opportunity just to get I would say that would be an amazing deal. I mean, but now the question I was going to ask you is, have you gotten into all of the units since? And
we have.
Okay, so tell me about what was there.
Yeah, so the two little houses, the beauty is they're 600 square feet, so they're beat up. I always create pride of ownership stuff, so they're going to be 12 grand. I mean, it was going to be 12 grand no matter what, because I knew the square footage. It's 512 square feet for the small one, and it's 608 for the bigger one. I'm like, great. New floors, new windows, new roof, new heating and cooling, new kitchen, new bath. It's 12 to 16 grand. So it's like, okay, great.
You just knew.
I just knew.
So there's another, but that just kind of foundational knowledge, and you having it on the tip of your tongue, allows you to make a quick decision and allows you to get to a quick price. So again, all these, I just want to call these out because I think these are easy little things to miss.
Yeah.
When you are, it's easy to sit here and listen to a podcast or watch a video and think, oh, well, if I had a deal like that fall in my lap, I'd execute too. Yeah. But be critical of yourself and ask yourself, could you?
Right.
Because not everyone can. And
we had about 48 hours where I had to get somebody in there to look at them. And it was really for me, the big house, right? Because the big house is almost 2,000 square feet. So there can be a lot of stuff in a 2,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
I wasn't so concerned about the little ones. But yeah, you're right. Most people probably, that again, the house, once I get them remodeled, will be worth 320 grand all day long. It was in contract at 240. We got it for 175 because you're right. I mean, I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, the ability to go in and know within 10% of what the total remodel is, again, to bringing it to my standard, that makes it easy. And oh, by the way, I had dry powder. I could have wrote a check, right? I had investors lining up left and right to be in the 6 and 20 program, which turned out to be what I did on this one. So I don't even have any money in the deal. I got none of my own money in the deal. I'm paying 6% interest on 175 grand, and I'll give when I sell it in about 4 months, I'll give them 20% of the profit. So all I have to do is fund 60 grand in repairs, and we'll make 45, 50 grand on our money. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that seems like it seems like a no-brainer from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, I will do those deals all day long. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I think I think it's important just to call out that's doable. Like, there's only probably a handful of people in Fresno that could have pulled that off.
Yeah, there's probably, it's less than 20 that really could have written a check. Because if the guy needed to close like at the end of the week, I could have done it with my own money, right? So that's a nice place to be for sure.
Okay, so you said something earlier that I wanted to ask you about. I don't think I've ever asked you about this.
Yep.
Tell me your opinion and experience with and just thoughts on wholesaling.
It's funny. So when I started investing, which started 20 years ago, wholesaling wasn't a thing, right? I didn't get any wholesale deals until after I retired from work. I didn't even know a single wholesaler in 2000 when did I retire? 17? I didn't know any of them. I didn't know it was a thing, right? And then I retire and suddenly I start getting postcards and all of these things. And I'm like, who are these people? So I start calling them and going, why are you an agent? I mean, what's going on? What are you trying to offer cash? And they're, so you get to meet them and you grow your network. I think wholesalers provide a unique clearing function. I think they helped a lot of people with ugly houses that don't go traditional financing sell. So I think they are a clearing function. I think there's a lot of bad wholesalers.
Yeah.
Anybody who will lock up a house and then the owner makes other costly decisions like buying another one or moving or packing up or whatever, and then doesn't close, that's unacceptable. And that does happen.
Yeah.
Because all you have is an assignment contract, right? You know, you have $100 tied to it or something. So I think in general, wholesaling has provided a very nice function. I have gotten 40% of my transactions, maybe 30%, somewhere between 30 and 40% from wholesalers since I left work. And I got 0 before I left work. Didn't even know it was a thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm inside the hub in Fresno. I have 3 or 4 wholesalers right now, and we'll do the right things because I'm involved in the process. So I'll close if I have to on deals, because I never want to leave a seller in the lurch. But the other thing, as I say, I bet there will be less wholesalers in 6 months because a lot of the flippers that they counted on are gone because of the financing changes that happened here over the last 3 months. So I think there'll be less wholesalers in 6 months.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't have any direct experience with wholesalers. My sense is that it probably that skill set probably grew out of coaching programs.
Probably. But I mean, just go back to this example, right? There was a wholesaler that got this guy all excited at 240, and he was counting on that money. And then he later learned, after giving the wholesaler an extension again to try, that he couldn't perform. And I think that is horrible.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, it worked out for me. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it didn't, but I don't like hearing that. When the horror stories I hear about owners, you know, one story I heard is he packed up a U-Haul and was ready to go and was heading to escrow, and the money wasn't there. The deal was canceled. It's like, God, how can you do that to someone? Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't seem, it's not it's going to come back at some point. And talk about building a reputation in a market.
Oof.
You're not going to get there doing that.
No, not at all. But in the end, I think, again, a lot of deals, I mean, I think the best time to wholesale properties was like 2017 to 2019. Prices were still low. There was a lot of inventory hangover from the collapse that didn't get turned. But now, since, you know, flipping became a thing again, which is, you know, I read a number that pre-pandemic, it's highest it ever been. It's less of a thing. And now there's too many coaching programs and too many people trying to do it. The amount of virtual wholesalers and all of these things out there are creating more, I don't want to call it pain, but there's more struggle. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. That makes sense. And there's more noise.
For sure.
I guess, presumably. In commercial deals, a lot of times, well, not always, but the more sophisticated the seller, I would say, they will not allow you to assign the contract to a non-affiliated entity.
Yeah.
Essentially kills the concept of wholesaling.
For sure. In commercial, yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting game. But again, when you do wholesaling right, and I know many of the big wholesalers, it's a wonderful thing, right? You get a bunch of chunk money. But let's not listen. The other thing that we need to say about wholesalers is they're spending a lot of money every month.
Marketing.
They're marketing and overhead and virtual assistants. And man, there are people spending between $6,000 and $20,000 a month in marketing in Fresno.
Wow.
I mean, that's $72,000 to $240,000 a year to attract deals. That's a hell of an overhead. You want to know why I will never do that? Because I don't want any employees. I don't want that overhead. I'm good, thank you. But there are people doing it, and it's a good business, but it's a job. Being a wholesaler is a job, and that's why I don't want it. It's a job. It can be a high paying job, but it's a job.
That's true. I mean, you have to transact in order to get paid.
Yeah.
There's no residual income. There's no passive income.
No.
And you're really only as good as your last or maybe your next deal.
And you're always reliant on a buyer, right? Even if your marketing machine is wound up and tight, you don't make money by getting the contract, right? You get money when somebody buys it. And what happened to a lot of deals, and it happened to this deal I just closed, is the lending landscape changed.
Yeah.
So what that if that deal would have been done in January, I promise you a flipper would have done it because there was enough room for them to make 30 grand. But once the marketing changed and you had to have your own dry powder, 90% of the flippers in Fresno disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that hurts wholesalers because you're reliant on them and you only get paid when somebody else buys it. So it's a tough business for sure.
So do you have anything else in the pipeline? You closed this one transaction, anything else?
I've sold a couple. I sold one 2 weeks ago, which it would have been in contract for 60 days just because it just took longer to appraise and inspect and do all those things. And then I have another one that was supposed to close with a loan last Friday, but because of all the lending changes, they are going to actually just close with cash, and it'll probably close this week or Monday or Tuesday next week. So yeah, lending is tough. Even if you're a six-figure Silicon Valley executive and you make a bunch of money, lending has changed. And they've done multiple deals with me. So they're repeat buyers, but they're like, too much of a headache. They're dragging their feet. We'll just close with cash. I'm like, must be nice. So,
they're buying it as an investment property.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a $150K house that's rented for $1,250, I think, fully remodeled, ready to go. It might be $1,300. I think it's $1,300 actually. So they're just going to buy it cash and just have it, they'll refi it later if they want to, but yeah, they're just going to close. So
yeah.
Yeah. And then while we were on the phone, there was a house that was listed for $220, which is the ARV, interestingly enough. And it needs about 40 grand. So it's been sitting a while. I actually offered first day listing. They told me to F off. I just replied, so this is a good story. So this property came out, I think it's 47 days ago when I looked at it, because I looked after 45 days. First day listing came out at 220. I offered 150. In this market, that's not going to work because listings are down and demand's up. But they were trying to get full ARV for a tenant occupied house that needs 40 grand. So it sat for 45 days, no activity. I had my agent yesterday write an offer for 150. The listing agent told them to F off. We forced it by writing the offer. They just countered at 180, literally while we're on the phone together. And I replied with, sorry, still no room, right? ARV's 220. It needs 40 grand. So, okay, great. So, at least they're realistic now, but there's no margin of safety. So I replied back with 150. So we'll see what happens. But again, that's about knowing your market, understanding what's going on, and being comfortable knowing your numbers. I would have done the deal at 150 45 days ago, and I'll do it at 150 in 45 days from now, if it's still there. So, but yeah, the market is crazy. That's the last thing to talk about is in Fresno. I got something from a broker on Sunday. Listings are 30% below normal for this month, and demand just since the last 2 weeks, demand has shot up. When you look at pendings, pendings are up almost 50%. So they went from like 2 months supply to less than a month because the listings are coming back. So I think prices for single family homes, at least in Fresno, can skyrocket. It's a suburb, right? So it's not San Francisco, it's not New York, which are in trouble. But I think single family homes in suburbia markets are gonna rise in prices because there's just no friggin' supply. I don't know where the supply is. Do you?
So tell me this. I think that's right. And there already are. Well, there's certainly anecdotes, but there is early data about an exodus from dense urban areas, particularly in New York and San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it is a trend to watch, and those people are moving somewhere. Many of them back closer to home, back to a more suburban.
And let's be clear, they're going from renters to owners in many cases. So I think we are going to see owner occupant, what do you call it, percentage rise a couple of points here in the next 18 months, which is unusual. It usually doesn't move that fast.
I wanted to ask you a question about strategy for selling a single family home. And just for context for anyone listening, let's assume the houses that you purchase and that you own as rental properties, they're a little bit below the median home price.
For sure. Median in Fresno is 260. I would tell you my average price point is 200 roughly.
Okay. So you're ready to sell a property.
Yep.
It's in good shape, doesn't need anything. You've already renovated it. It's had, let's say you've owned it for a handful of years. You've had a tenant or two in there. Now you're ready to sell it. You're ready to recycle your cash.
Yeah.
Do you sell it with a tenant in place and sell it to an investor? Do you wait for the lease to expire, move the tenant out, and sell it to a first-time home buyer?
So in today's market, answering this question on June 18th, I would vacate the property, cash for keys, wait for them to move, whatever. And then I would fix it up and I would sell it to an owner occupant. And I know that because a friend of mine just did that on just a know-nothing 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. That full ARV is $199. He listed it $199. He had 3 first-time home buyers bid it up to $215. I'll take the extra 15 grand, and I got a lot of houses. So yes, I would kick it. I would kick them out, or not kick them out. I would make it worth their while. I'd give them thousands of dollars to leave, and I would fix it up. New paint, probably new granite. The flooring's probably already done, but yeah, I would fix it up. I would list it on the market at full ARV. I would say not responding to offers for 10 days because listings are so god awful low. Now, so that's what I would do today on June 18th. Let's pretend it's October 18th and listings have skyrocketed for some reason. Now listings are outpacing demand, right? Let's assume that's the environment. Then what I would do is I would sell it occupied because again, I want to have multiple options and maybe the buyer will be an investor and I would save on the remodel cost, right? So that's a great question. And it's an important one because my behavior changes based on the fact that I look at my market every freaking day. And today the answer is vacant and it smells clean. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, I like it. And if I had to distill what you just said, I would summarize it by saying, and paraphrase, basically you're looking at supply and demand, supply and demand for demand for owner occupants and demand for investors. And right now, demand for owner occupants is skewed higher than demand for investors.
Without question, substantially, probably 4x. So yes.
And particularly in that market, particularly at that price point.
Dead on, correct.
So and for whatever it's worth, I think I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And again, I have no judgment. Again, when you watch your market every day and it tells you what to do. I mean, it really does. I mean, that's why people get all wonky when they want me to give them a strategy for next year. I'm like, how can I tell you that? I can tell you what works right now, but dude, this can change in a heartbeat. What happens if lending changes, right? I mean, I've seen lending blow up businesses 3 or 4 times now. So yeah, it's a fun business to be in. So I heard you just went into contract on something new. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we did. This one kind of fell in our lap, also as a result of, I guess, reputation and relationships.
Oh, nice.
This is an 8-unit multifamily deal in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
It is just a 60s built, 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms, units.
Like 4 and 4 kind of thing?
Yeah, it's just one. No, it's one building with 8 units.
Okay, got it.
And it is, we have an older seller who is just kind of liquidating things over time. He owns multiple properties. He's sold.
Just be clear. I want to be that guy someday. Just be really clear.
You are. You're certainly, you're just not the older part.
Yeah.
You're there already. But the age is simply a motivating factor.
Yeah,
this
I get
man's
it.
in his 80s.
Yeah, believe me, I will likely not own a portfolio of rentals in my 80s. I will be sitting on cash and enjoying the rest of my life.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to be funding people that are doing what you're doing.
Exactly. Yep.
So 8 units, 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. It's in a good neighborhood, not an amazing neighborhood, but a good neighborhood. Current rents are between 12 to 1,300 for 1 bedrooms and up to like 1,600 for 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
And we're going to essentially completely renovate the entire property inside and outside.
Oh, wow.
And turn it into a pretty nice property, probably the nicest in the neighborhood, nicest rental property in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And hopefully achieve some significant rental increases. But we're talking about, you just said, your numbers, went through an example, which is it's great. It's really, you have to know this. And we are kind of going through the same experience. We know that we're going to we'll budget maybe $35,000 a door.
Okay.
We'll probably spend closer to 25 to 30.
Okay.
But everything will be brand new. Nothing will be, this is assuming you don't have to tear down drywall, but it will be upgrading electrical, plumbing, all of the surfaces, all of the fixtures, everything's going to be new.
How about
new
the
exterior,
outside?
New exterior, new stucco and paint, new roof.
Oh, stucco, yeah, okay.
New landscape. Depending on the windows, I can't remember if this already has vinyl double pane windows or not. I can't recall. But
yeah, okay.
But basically, I'm gonna turn it around completely, and that also means vacating tenants because you need to come in and improve their space. It's going to take some time.
Yeah. So then the question is, do you do them one at a time? Do you ask them to leave at the same time? What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, for us, speed is the most important factor.
Okay.
Preference would be if we could, if all tenants were able to vacate as quickly as possible and we could turn the entire project really quickly.
Okay. So that's not likely.
I don't think that's going to be likely. And the statewide rent control laws.
Oh yeah.
Are certainly a factor here. So we can,
60 days, because it's a multifamily, right? You have 60 days minimum if they've been there a year, and you have to pay moving expenses.
Yes. So we have to budget for that too.
Absolutely.
So you need to go in and determine how many, who's on month to month, who's on a longer term lease.
Yep.
And then, you go try and pay people to leave.
No, absolutely. Cash for keys. That's right.
And so, we have not executed this particular strategy, this cash for keys. Well, that's not quite true. We've done it on one project, but not with office tenants, not in multifamily. Okay. And but we are that's the intention, that's the plan. And so, and ballpark numbers, we're going to buy it at don't fall out of your chair. But we're going to buy it at $280,000 a door.
Okay.
I saw you lean back.
2.24. Okay. Got it. All right.
Yeah. So $280,000 a door. We'll put 40,000 a door into it.
Yeah. So now you're at the 2.5-ish.
Yeah. So, and just on a per door basis, $320 a door. It's probably, it's worth at least in the high threes, probably into the mid fours per door when you're all said and done.
What's going to be the rent? Again, you can average it because it's a ones and twos.
For the 1 bedrooms, rents will be right around probably $1,900, $2,000.
Okay.
For the 2 bedrooms, we're probably $2,600, $2,700.
And are there 4 of each kind?
No, I think there are 5 1s and 3 2s.
Of course. always more of the smaller. So that means, again, your blended average is like 2,300-ish once you're all said and done. So 23.
Something like that. Yeah.
So 2,300 rent on a 320 all in number per door. No, that's not right. You said.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right.
Now, this is a different game, right? Mm-hmm. The game that we are playing here, this is essentially a flip. We're not going to hold this long term. Because think about the market and the price point. This is not below, this is not the play here is you can add a lot of value by improving the property, taking care of any deferred maintenance.
What do you think the cap rate will be when you exit? Is it sub 5?
Oh yeah.
Sub 4?
Probably sub 4.
Wow. Okay.
So that's the value. And that's actually a really important distinction that you said, and probably, probably not everyone listening to this might catch that or understand that. But the cap rate is really important when you are flipping a property.
Yeah.
Because the lower the cap rate, and it's driven by the market and the asset class and type, the lower the cap rate, the more money you can make. Every dollar of NOI, every dollar of net income that you add to the property, you increase the value of the property by incrementally more.
No question.
And so just like another way of stating it would be, if you had this exact same 8-unit property in Mobile, Alabama, it would sell at maybe an 8 cap.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you do the exact same plan, exact same business plan, and you go to sell both properties, spent the same money on them, and you go to sell both properties, you're going to get a lot more for the resale of the Santa Barbara property than you are for the Mobile, Alabama property, even if they produce the exact same amount of cash flow.
For sure.
So some investor is going to be willing to pay more for $1 of cash flow in Santa Barbara than $1 of cash flow in Mobile, Alabama. For sure. And that's why for us in California, especially in a market like Santa Barbara, where supply is extremely restricted.
Tight. Yeah.
And occupancy is very, very high. It's like 2% vacancy, multifamily vacancy in the market. We don't look at it as a very risky proposition.
No. Yeah. It makes total sense.
There's always going to be someone that is very interested in renting that property. And we have comps nearby that show that people are willing to pay more than what they're paying now for an improved product. And
so I'm curious, did this seller by chance agree to any seller financing, or he's like, hey, I'm going to take the cash, you're going to go get a bank loan?
No, we didn't ask. You might slap me on the wrist for that.
You got to at least ask.
We didn't even ask. It was, so this was an off-market deal.
Sure.
And we're getting they were going to go out to market at probably closer to $2.5 million. So we felt like we're getting a little bit of a better deal than it would probably be bid up if it went out to market.
Well, again, so what is your bank loan? You're going to get a bank loan, I guess, I assume.
Well, to your point about lending, we're in the process of trying to figure out what our lending options are. There's probably two paths. Okay. So first of all, what I have seen so far, in the middle of COVID world, is LTVs come down.
For sure.
Certain property types are dismissed altogether, like retail and hospitality.
Correct.
Some office. For multifamily, most lenders are still interested in multifamily, but the LTVs are down a bit, so you can't get as high a leverage. Correct. So what we are probably looking at is either 70% LTV on the purchase, but we fund the renovation ourselves.
Correct. Probably true.
Or 60% LTV on the purchase. The bank or the lender will fund the renovation up to a maximum of a 65% LTV on the
post.
ARV.
Yeah.
So there's a couple, it just depends. You can slice it a couple different ways. We're also looking at a couple, what I would call more creative kind of financing options. But I think one of those two is going to be the most likely path. Yeah.
Again, I think this is at least worth a phone call. You never know what that owner is looking to do. And again, you might want to call them and say, hey, would you be interested in being the bank on this one for 2 years or 3, for 2 years. And he gets income from, the story, but you might as well ask, you're already in contract. Yeah. Just say, hey, how about you get 30% of the money now and you get the other 70% when we're done? And oh, by the way, I'll give you monthly income till then.
Yeah.
I would at least make that phone call.
No. And actually, now that you mention that, we just got into contract yesterday. So we're
cool.
We haven't, we're just kind of getting our feet under us, but to me, we're actually in a position of greater leverage to go ask for that now than if we would have
Oh, for sure.
before we entered into contract.
You are in contract now. It is yours. You can ask whatever you want. Yes.
Yeah.
I would definitely do it. Why not? There's nothing to lose. There's very few questions that have no downside. That one has no downside.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, very, very cool. Well, congratulations. That's going to be fun to watch. Are you actually going to drive to Santa Barbara? Is Santa Barbara driving distance for you, or you got to fly?
No, it's about 4.5 hour drive.
So yeah, for some people that's too much. For some people that's no big deal. So
well,
what I'm hearing is
the problem here. I'm in the Bay Area. Flight is you go to SFO and then you take a flight to Santa Barbara. So it's actually not really, the flight itself is shorter.
Yeah, but getting there early
day is not any shorter.
Yeah, and plus it's a nice drive. You just go down one, right?
You can, yeah.
At least, yeah. At least you got to go one at least there or the way back. It's a very different drive, but yeah, 101 is faster. Well, dude, this is cool, man. I look forward to catching up next week, see what's going on with this. When are you heading down there for due diligence?
Well, it depends. We're scheduling our inspections and everything, so we're trying to get that all sorted out. The one benefit is I have a partner who's in the LA area.
Oh,
so
there you go.
A little bit closer. So we sometimes divide and conquer, and he may go and I may not, or maybe don't say anything to my wife, but maybe we can figure out a way to go down and figure out a half a day of golf out of it too. But I think that's unlikely.
Probably unlikely. Oh, it got postponed, honey. I'm sorry. We got to do it tomorrow. Oh, whoops. Well, dude, this is always fun, man. Congratulations, and keep doing what you're doing.
All right, Michael. Same to you. Thanks.
You got it.